Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for your love for this channel. Thank you for your support and for the subscriptions. And please, if you are a returning subscriber, do not forget to hit on that notification button to get update whenever a new video is posted on this channel. And I want to give a big shout out to members of this channel, those that have decided to take their support to another level. Thank you so much for supporting the community and making it grow to where it is today. And if you are a newcomer on this channel, I want to say a big thank you for choosing to watch this content. And please do not forget to hit on that subscribe or the join button to join the community. And also do not forget to hit on the notification button so you can get updates each time we have updates on this channel. So, ladies and gentlemen, the last video we had here was incredible, uncovering the lies of Cameroon. So in today's episode, we are looking at, I promised during the last video that I was going to bring this in different series. So in today's episode, we are looking at part 2 of uncovering the lies, Cameroon's illegal claim to Ambazonia. So in this segment, we explore the grim realities faced by the people of Southern Cameroons following their forced integration into Republic du Cameroon. What began as a promise of federation quickly devolved into systematic effort to erase Southern Cameroon's distinct identity and autonomy. We will dive into the oppressive measures enacted by the central government of La République du Cameroon and the resistance of Southern Cameroonian leaders and the tragic but deadly consequences that unfolded as a result of this resistance. For you to better understand this segment, I'll advise you to go back, ladies and gentlemen, and watch part 1, the one that says uncovering the lies, Cameroon's illegal occupation of Ambazonia, or Cameroon's illegal claim to Ambazonia. This is very important because if you just watch this one and do not watch the previous part, the first part of this episode, then you won't have a full understanding of what this is all about. So please, I will advise that you go back and watch Uncovering the Lies, Cameroon's illegal claim to Ambazonia on this channel. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into this. The Southern Cameroons, initially thriving and culturally vibrant, experienced a devastating shift. A shift after the British departure in 1961. Remember in the previous video, we said the Queen of England called off its troops in Southern Cameroons in 1961. So the transition to the supposed federation with Republic du Cameroon quickly revealed itself as a facet, a trap that would lead to the subjugation of its people. The de facto Cameroon Federation lasted a mere 10 years, during which time the government of La République du Cameroon systematically dominated the Southern Cameroons. Political representation was a crude joke. Only a token present in government, ensuring that decisions affecting their lives were made without their input. This is how trickish the government of La République du Cameroon was. So political representation was just a crude joke. It was just a mere joke, a mere representation. So whatever their presence there was of no significance, of no relevance, they made sure that decision affecting the lives of the people of Southern Cameroons was made without the input of these representatives, the Southern Cameroonians representatives that were in the La République Assembly. And that it has nothing whatsoever. They have no input whatsoever. So the Southern Cameroons Prime Minister and the ministers were relegated to subordinate roles, stripped of real power, and forced to operate under the watchful eyes of the La République du Cameroon counterparts. This is how trickish La République du Cameroon is. Remember, they said it was 1 to 800,000 people. 1 is to 800,000 people. Can you imagine? So the military presence was exclusively francophone. Remember, Southern Cameroon had not yet had its own military. So the military presence was exclusively francophone, trained to enforce the will of the Yaoundé regime. So in a move that echoed colonial dominance, the territory was redefined administratively to ensure that the Southern Cameroons operated not as an equal state, but as a dependency, a mere administrative region of La République du Cameroun. If you follow what we said in the first part, then you will have a better understanding of where we are heading to right now. The economic strangulation was equally brutal. We've looked at the political, we've looked at the military, now we are looking at the economy. The economic strangulation was equally brutal. The once thriving agro-industries were decimated, with lucrative banana export redirected to favor companies in La République du Cameroon. Please, Ambazonians, listen to these things so that you will know exactly why we fight today and why this battle has been there since 1961. It didn't start today in 2016. It was not provoked by Dr. Cho Lucas Ayaba. It was not provoked by me. It was not provoked by you. Our forefathers, even when before I was even born, this fight was already ongoing. So let us look at this. Let us go step by step and understand the history and understand the subjugation and understand the pain that La République du Cameroon has inflicted on the people of Southern Cameroons. Like I said, the once thriving agro-industries were disseminated, with lucrative banana export redirected to favor companies in La République du Cameroon. Seaport bustling with trade were closed off, and the infrastructure was manipulated to create dependency, forcing Southern Cameroonians to travel far and wide to access basic goods. This is true. The political elite of Southern Cameroons did not remain silent. They saw what La République du Cameroon was doing through this fake federation, and there were some political elite that stood up to challenge the status quo. Figures like Prime Minister A.N. Dwa and Professor Dr. Fallon fought for autonomy, only to be dismissed and silenced. Their pleas for fair representation and self-governance met with contempt. La République du Cameroon does not listen. It does not negotiate. Or La République du Cameroon knows nothing but brute force. We have seen this and we continue to see it in our time. It was met with contempt. This pattern of suppression persisted, culminating in a brutal crackdown of dissent, illustrated tragically by the Tombe pogrom in 1966. Here, a retaliatory response to violence resulted in the massacre of 236 innocent Bakosi villagers, a grim reminder of the regime's ruthlessness. Ladies and gentlemen, when La République du Cameroon started attacking or mounted a crackdown on dissent, our people rose to protest against this. And this protest was met with brutality, leading to the massacre of 236 innocent Bakosi villagers. And this only shows you the level of brutality of La République du Cameroon. We saw what they did in Bali. We've seen what they've done in Tibeng, the ones in Munyenge, the ones in Victoria, in Mutengene. We've seen how they've killed our people in their numbers. We cannot forget Gabo. We cannot forget the many massacres that they carried out in Ambazonia. They killed our young men in Bali. The ones in Pinyin, more than 45 young men put their bodies together, set it ablaze, and buried them in mass graves. So this did not start today. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget. If you said this one was initiated by this generation, I want you to ask yourself what initiated the brutality of La République du Cameroon on our people that resulted in the 1966 Tombe massacre that killed 236 Bakosi villagers. Amidst this chaos, the so-called referendum of 1972 emerged as yet another betrayer. Ahidjo, without the consent of Southern Cameroons, proclaimed an end to the federation and manipulated a vote that guaranteed overwhelming support for his unification efforts. The voices of Southern Cameroonians were drawn out, rendered powerless in a decision that irrevocably altered their political landscape. 1972. So don't think it started in 2016. The manipulation did not start in 2016. Using Ambazonians against Ambazonians, it did not start in 2016. And if you're saying Cameroon is one and indivisible, I hope that part one of this video has given you a clear picture of the two Cameroons.
Le président Amadou Ahidjo va se rapprocher des autorités de la zone occidentale du pays pour faciliter le rattachement des deux régions, notamment avec le premier ministre du Cameroun anglophone, John Goufoncha, qui lui promet d'œuvrer en faveur de la réunification complète des deux Camerouns.
À la veille des fêtes du 3e anniversaire de la réunification des deux Camerouns, le président de la République fédérale, M. Amadou Ahidjo, s'est rendu en visite officielle à Buéa, capitale du Cameroun occidental. Le lendemain de son arrivée, le président Ahidjo s'est rendu en grande pompe au stade Mouyouka, où l'attendait au milieu d'une foule enthousiaste de très nombreuses personnalités locales. L'après-midi, dans les jardins de la résidence du vice-président Poncha, un vivant spectacle de danse folklorique a été donné en l'honneur du président Ahidjo et de son épouse.
J'aimerais vous assurer que nous, de l'autre secteur du Cameroun, travaillerons encore plus durement qu'auparavant afin de rendre possible la formation de ce grand pays, le Cameroun. Maintenant libre, il vous appartient d'entreprendre, suivant vos propres options, des négociations internationales pour les relations diplomatiques. Cependant, sachant ce que nous recherchons, nous voudrions vous conseiller de nous consulter dans toutes relations internationales possibles avec les peuples libres du monde.
Accueilli au palais par les honneurs militaires, le président Ahidjo devait, au cours d'une brève cérémonie, recevoir le cordon rouge symbolisant les attributs du grand maître des ordres nationaux. Il lui fut remis par l'honorable John Goufoncha, grand chancelier des ordres.
Malgré cette promesse du Premier ministre du Cameroun anglophone qui aboutit à la réunification officielle des deux entités le 1er octobre 1961, l'unification du pays n'est pas encore acquise. Il reste de nombreuses poches de résistance aggravées par le tribalisme. Plus de 200 ethnies, cela fait tout de même beaucoup de monde à rassembler et à gérer, surtout lorsque ces différences sont parfois exploitées par certains colons, pas toujours contents de l'indépendance, synonyme pour eux de fin des privilèges, que par certains hommes politiques désireux de déstabiliser le régime.
Après plus de 40 années de séparation, nous reformons aujourd'hui une même famille, une même nation, un même État. Que ce jour heureux soit un jour d'allégresse pour tous les Camerounais qui croient en leur pays, qui aiment leur patrie. En moins de 2 ans, ils auront atteint les 2 objectifs essentiels qu'ils s'étaient fixés, l'indépendance et la réunification. Réunissant aujourd'hui les populations d'expression française et d'expression anglaise, le Cameroun sera le véritable laboratoire d'une union africaine qui doit rassembler des États parlants ces 2 langues. Il formera un pont entre les 2 Afriques et son rôle ne peut être qu'accru dans les prochaines assemblées africaines. Ainsi, fort de nos 2 communautés, nous pourrons poursuivre au profit du Cameroun, mais aussi au profit de toute l'Afrique et du monde, le renforcement d'un État que nous voudrons accueillant à tous, qu'ils soient d'ici ou d'ailleurs, d'Afrique ou d'au-delà des mers.
La détermination d'Ahidjo à obtenir l'unité nationale va très vite transformer son régime en une dictature parfois féroce. Il faut arriver à cette unité nationale, quel qu'en soit le prix. Douze ans après la proclamation de l'indépendance, plus précisément le 20 mai 1972, après un référendum au forceps, Ahidjo réussit l'unification des deux parties du pays. La République fédérale du Cameroun devient tout simplement la République unie du Cameroun.
Ahidjo est arrivé à la conférence de Fumban avec un projet qui avait été écrit par ses conseillers français, qui était un projet qui ligotait complètement le Cameroun occidental, et les Foncha et compagnie, ils ont été complètement perdus parce qu'eux n'avaient pas de projet, et puis ils n'ont pas su comment réagir et se sont fait embobiner.
This chapter of history reflects not only the struggle of a people, but also the broader implication of colonial legacies, national identity, and the relentless pursuit of autonomy in the face of oppression. This is what we pursue. Relentless pursuit of autonomy in the face of oppression. So, ladies and gentlemen, I said the last time that we are going to break this in segment by segment and also in headings by heading, just the way it was presented by our legal minds in the Banjul courts. So in this part 2, we will be starting off with the onset of the armed occupation of the Southern Cameroons by La République du Cameroon. So if you think that they came to occupy Ambazonia today, and then you are in for another revelation. So let us go into the onset of the armed occupation of the Southern Cameroons by La République du Cameroon. I want you to take this date very seriously. On the 25th of September 1961, like we said in the introduction, the British Queen issued a proclamation declaring that the British government shall, as from the first day of October 1961, cease to be responsible for the administration of Southern Cameroons. The British government then began to withdraw its personnel from the territory, culminating in the departure of its troops on September 30th, 1961. The territory was left defenseless as it had no military force of its own. Remember, we said in part 1 that as of that time, the British took control of the defense of Southern Cameroons. The French Cameroon had its own trained military, but Southern Cameroon did not have a military of its own. So when the troops left on the 30th of September 1961, the territory was left defenseless. La République du Cameroon moved in its military forces without concurrence of the government of Southern Cameroon. This is when La République started its occupation of Ambazonia, or Southern Cameroons. Remember, it had already the president of La République du Cameroon in our previous session told the United Nations multiple times through telegrams, through his own presence at the United Nations committee, that they are not annexationists, that they will only collaborate with us on the position of equality and on equal basis as brothers. But this is what they did. Immediately, the British, the Queen of England, passed out the proclamation that it's withdrawing its troops from Southern Cameroon. The next day, La République du Cameroon sent its military forces to occupy the territory, and they have remained in the Southern Cameroon since then, a situation indistinguishable from belligerent occupation. Again, on October 1st, 1961, the British government and the United Nations washed their hands off Southern Cameroon, leaving the political status of the territory and the fate of its people in limbo. They left us in a state of limbo, and this has been the torment of the people of Southern Cameroons since that day. The British government, the United Nations, they washed their hands off us, despite being a territory under the trusteeship of the under the administration of the United Kingdom and under the mandatory system at the time. The British government declared that the Southern Cameroons and its inhabitants were expendable. Remember, in part 1, we have discovered some things that France said to Ahidjo that Southern Cameroons was un petit cadeau from the Queen of England, that it was a small gift from the Queen of England, un petit cadeau pour la reine d'Angleterre. So it is said here that the British government declared that the Southern Cameroons and its inhabitants were expendable. So this was a statement that was discovered in a declassified file on the Southern Cameroons, the PRO London. The attitude of the United Nations is all the more surprising when it is recalled that the war body had drafted constitutions for the Ethiopian / Eritrea Federation and also for what is now the Democratic Republic of Congo. So the United Nations had stepped in due time and followed due process to draft in a constitution for Ethiopia and Eritrea and also for the Democratic Republic of Congo. But when it came to the case of Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroun, the United Nations washed its hands off the matters of Southern Cameroon and that of and even the United Kingdom, which was over the administering power in Southern Cameroon at the time. On the same day, the de facto Cameroon Federation came into existence. That is on that 1st of October. Sovereignty over the Southern Cameroons that had supposedly achieved independence on that day was never handed over to the government of Southern Cameroons. If they had handed it over to the government of Southern Cameroon, then this government of Southern Cameroon, which would then have handed it to the legitimate federal government, it was supposed to then hand it over to the federal government. But however, Mr. Ahidjo didn't hand that over and proclaim himself as the self-head of the yet-to-be-formed federal government. Nobody voted him. Nobody elected him. He didn't get approval or the support of the government or the leaders of the Southern Cameroons. He self-proclaimed himself. He made it law and it remained law. Okay. Revealing provisions of the de facto constitution. Let us look at the de facto constitution, the so-called federation that they keep. Some people today are talking, they want to have a 4-state federation. Some are talking about 10-state federation. Some are talking about 2-state federation. Let us look into this de facto constitution of the federation, the then federation, which was, of course, even dissolved by the same person who single-handedly declared it anyways. So the federal constitution unilaterally drafted, please let us be listening. The federal constitution that was unilaterally drafted and enacted by Republic du Cameroon contains some revealing provisions. The president of La République du Cameroun gave himself absolute power under Article 50 of the so-called Federation Constitution to rule by the decree during the first 6 months of the Federation. Article 54 made provision for the composition of federal parliamentarians in proportion to the number of inhabitants of each federated state in the ratio of 1 parliamentarian is to 80,000 inhabitants. My goodness. 80,000 inhabitants. So the constitution put the population of the Southern Cameroons at 800,000 and that of La République du Cameroun at 3.2 million, thus hitting 10 parliamentarians from the Southern Cameroons and 40 from the Republic of Cameroon in the Federal National Assembly. This inconsequential representation was designed to ensure that Southern Cameroons influenced neither legislation nor policy in the Federation. Let's pick up these details. Article 56 enacted that on October 1st, 1961, the government of La République du Cameroun, the government of the Republic of Southern Cameroon and the government of La République du Cameroun shall become the government of the two federated states respectively. Article 59 stated that the French text of the Constitution was the authoritative version. Wow. Listen to this. Let me take that again. Article 56 enacted that on the 1st of October 1961, the government of the Republic of Southern Cameroon and the government of the Republic of Cameroon shall become the governments of the two federated states respectively. However, Article 59 stated that the French text of the Constitution was the authoritative version. Two governments coming together, two languages coming, but they choose to prioritize one language over the other. So begin to get it. This telling provision was later expunged from the Constitution, but without, in fact, changing the factual situation created by them. Okay, let's continue. Conspicuously absent from the document were certain key matters the Southern Cameroons had insisted on during pre- and post-plebiscite talks with La République du Cameroon. Robust state autonomy, a constitutional bill of right, a federal senate, and a judicial independence. Remember, Southern Cameroons is British, is common law oriented. So Southern Cameroonian leaders presented these key matters that have to be included into the constitution. But no, there was nothing there. They were all absent. They advocated they had this discussion pre and post plebiscite for a robust state autonomy, a constitutional bill of right, a federal senate, and a judicial independence. But none of these were made available in the supposed federation constitution. So, however, there was no provision in the document to the effect that the Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroon shall be united in one sovereign republic. No provision to the effect that the federation was one and indivisible, and no claim that the document represented consensus and ad edem of the Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroon. So for those of you singing that Cameroon is one and indivisible, I bet that you haven't read that constitution, and it is well stated here that there was no provision in the document to the effect that Southern Cameroons and the Republic of Cameroon shall be united in one sovereign republic. No provision to the effect that the federation was one and indivisible, and no claim that the document represented consensus ad edem of the Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroon. The political authorities of La République du Cameroon were and remain in the driver's seat of the de facto federation. Aware that the federation lacked a legal, valid founding document and that it had a mere de facto existence, those authorities never appealed for UN membership. Those authorities never applied for UN membership for the federation. So the federation was never a member of the United Nations. Okay, let's get this clear. People claim that Cameroon and Southern Cameroon are one and indivisible. How are they one and indivisible? Since Cameroon itself was already a member of the United Nations before the United Nations voted for the Southern Cameroon's independence through the April 21st a vote, a resolution 1608 that gave Southern Cameroon its independence by joining La République du Cameroon. So those were two different states. So, however, but when these two states came together and formed a federation, this federation now, like the Ethiopia and the Eritrea one, were supposed now to go and become a member of the United Nations, which they didn't. So, in effect, what is still in the archives of the United Nations remains La République du Cameroon and Southern Cameroons. So there is nothing there like the Federal Republic of Cameroon. You get it? I hope you get it. If you don't get it, forget it. Okay, let's continue. The onset of reign of terror in the Southern Cameroons. We've talked about the armed occupation. Now we are talking about the terror in Southern Cameroons. In his unilateral constitution, the president of La République du Cameroon declared himself president of the federation. Nobody voted for him. There was no election. He was self-appointed. He appointed himself. He made himself king. He made himself the law. He enacted the constitution by himself without inputs from leaders of the Southern Cameroons. It is said here that he, in his unilateral federal constitution, the president of La République du Cameroon, declared himself president of the federation. In early October 1961, he issued a proclamation placing the Southern Cameroons under a state of emergency for 6 months, renewable ad infinitum. It's a law term, but anybody, if you hear it, you understand what it means. A situation that has more or less remained unchanged to this day. What provoked this proclamation? He was just trying to exert authority over Ambazonia. He was just trying to tell Ambazonians or Southern Cameroonians that you have no say. We have colonized you. Or we have, yes, in fact, we have colonized you. We are now your colonial masters. Because what provoked a state of emergency in Southern Cameroons for 6 months and to be renewable infinitely? Again, he also issued a decree extending to the Southern Cameroons the pass system in force in La République du Cameroon. The system required any foreign person, any person intending to travel from one district to another or from one town to another to obtain a laissez-passer from the military or police authorities to exhibit the same to those authorities on demand at any checkpoint under pain of arrest and imprisonment. If Ambazonians, I really want us to listen to this clearly. Let me take this again. He also issued a decree extending to the Southern Cameroons the pass system in La République du Cameroon. The system required any person intending to travel from one district to another or from one town to another to obtain a laissez-passer from the military or police authorities and to extend the same to those authorities on demand at any checkpoint under pain of arrest or imprisonment. Let me ask you this. After listening to this, you said you're one and indivisible. If you are one Cameroon, why are you forced then to present a laissez-passer? Let's keep pondering over those questions while we move forward. Another decree also extended the carte d'identité system to the Southern Cameroons. The system requires all persons aged 18 and above to carry on their person at all times a document called Carte d'identité nationale, and to produce it at any time and place on demand by the police or military authorities under pain of arrest and imprisonment. The card contained details about the holder, his name, the names of his father and mother, his date of birth and place of birth, his profession, his place of abode, his thumbprint, his signature, and body identification marks. This is what was required of Southern Cameroonians. Other decrees followed, notably the 1962 Subversion Ordinance, the 1966 Law on Press Censorship, and the 1967 Proscribing Meetings and Association. This latter law effectively outlaws civil society organization, the formation of political parties. The law seriously eroded the civil and political rights the people of Southern Cameroons were accustomed to enjoying during the period of the British colonial rule. They took away everything that was a unique identity to the people of Southern Cameroonians to impose on us the French system and of French Cameroon. The activities of the sinister Gestapo, modern secret police in La République du Cameroon, deceptively named Documentations and Research Center, first known by the acronym DIRDOC, that is DIRDOC, then later SEDOC, which is SEDOC, and finally CND, were extended to the Southern Cameroons together with the infamous torture unit called Brigade Mobile Mixed, the BMM. These structures tortured or disappeared persons who dared to oppose the political status quo. Ambazonians, listen. This BMM, the structured, tortured, and disappeared persons who dared to oppose the political status quo. Among the Southern Cameroonians victims of these structures is Mr. Mokong, whom meticulously survived 12 years of gruesome detention and torture and was able in his book, Prisoner Without a Crime. And Mr. Mokong, we are talking about Albert Mokong here. Mr. Mokong, who wrote the book, Prisoner Without a Crime, to record in graphic details for posterity the frightening modus operandi of this outfit. So the system of La République du Cameroon torturing or trying to silence the voices of dissent, of those who speak truth to power, of those who challenge the status quo in La République du Cameroon did not start today in 2016. It did not start with the arrest of Comrade Tassan Wilfred and those of Sissoko Ayok Tabe and Pam Fongalamfo and the CICs. No. It has been there. Even Akwanga has suffered this. Even if he has been bought over today, he also went through this. So it is said that BMM, this structure, it was meant to torture and disappear persons who dare to oppose the political status quo of La République du Cameroon. And it is said again that Mr. Albert Mokong was one of its victims. And while incarceration, he wrote the book, Prisoners Without a Crime, to record the ordeal of what he went through and the details of what La République du Cameroon is doing for posterity, for you and I today to read and know what has been happening in the territory before now. I hope we all get this clear. As early as December 1961, another ordinance extended to the Southern Cameroons the system of civilian targeted military tribunal existing in La République du Cameroon, much to the contestation of the people of the territory. A permanent military tribunal was set up in Buea, capital of Southern Cameroons. Like those in La République du Cameroon, it was composed of a civilian magistrate and 2 armed officers, civilians of La République du Cameroon. This was a court that was set up in Buea, but it was composed of citizens of La République du Cameroon. And don't forget that the court in Buea or in Southern Cameroon, we practice the common law system, the English common law system, while the court in La République du Cameroon, they practice the civil law system. But when this was set up in Southern Cameroons, it was La République officials that were appointed to take charge of this court. So it is said. So the magistrate and the two armed officers were all citizens of La République du Cameroon. It has jurisdiction to try civilians for an array of ill-defined offenses under the subversion ordinance and other decrees such as subversive activities, offenses against state security, possession of firearms or animations, contempt of the president, ridiculing public authority, inciting hatred against the government, dissemination of false news, and any offense of whatever nature in an area subject to the state of emergency or other exceptional circumstances. A state of emergency had early been declared over the Southern Cameroons, committed even by civilians. So these were the crimes that were brought to this military tribunal in Boya. Let me take the crimes again. They say if the crimes that it had jurisdiction to try civilians of an array of ill-defined offenses under the subversion ordinance and other decrees such as subversive activities, offenses against state security, possession of firearms or animation, contempt of the president, ridiculing public authority, inciting hatred against the government, dissemination of false news, and any offense of whatever nature in an area subject to state of emergency or other exceptional circumstances. These were the charges, these were the crimes that were tried in a military tribunal. Again, let's move forward. High-profile cases of Southern Cameroons tried in Boya or Yaoundé in La République du Cameroon include the officer of police, Inspector Ndifo, the 143 Bakosi people arrested in Tombe in 1966, the journalist Martin Ye, J.F. Dwella, Martin Che, Peter Eta Oben, and the publisher of N.S. Tita. In a Cameroon Times publication of February 1970, the journalist expressed the general sentiments of the people of Southern Cameroons when they observed that the Cameroonese forces in the Southern Cameroons were by their conduct indistinguishably from colonial forces of occupation. And all these people were arrested. The state of emergency provided and continued to provide the legal basis for the military forces of La République du Cameroon to subject the people of Southern Cameroon to all kinds of abuses, terror, and harassment. Taken together, the active enforcement of the state of the emergency, the ambiguity of the force, armor, and gendarmerie, the indiscriminate application of the subversive ordinance, and the activities of the military tribunal and the secret police had the effect of unleashing the veritable reign of terror in the Southern Cameroons. So Ahidjo came in and imposed a state of emergency in Southern Cameroons and used that state of emergency to arrest, torture, and imprison Southern Cameroonians who dared to speak. Journalists who tried to speak up were arrested. Those who, civilians who tried to go against, they were arrested. So this is how Cameroon has long been ruling Southern Cameroons. This is how they've been oppressing our people from 1961 to this day. So this fight for freedom, the fight to speak up did not start in 2016, fellow Ambalanders. It started way back in 1961 when we gained our independence. Okay, so let's move forward. Let's talk about the ratissage or the condone and search operation. A typical method of abuse, torture, and other inhumane and degrading treatment is the ratissage. In the language of those foreign forces, a method of psychological warfare used by French to enforce their colonial rule in Vietnam. Algeria and French Cameroon, the ratissage is a condone and search operation, an encirclement and dragnet maneuver practically carried out by military forces against the population. So that which was used to enforce colonial rule in Vietnam and in Algeria by French forces was also used by French Cameroon in Southern Cameroons. Remember, French forces in Vietnam were the colonial masters. Those in Algeria were also the colonial masters. So if La République du Cameroon was using the same language on the people of Southern Cameroon, what in effect does it say? That they are the colonial masters of Southern Cameroons. So we talk about the illegal claim of Southern Cameroon in Ambazonia. We are not out of order. This subjugation and terrorization strategy is meant to impress on the people of the Southern Cameroons that they are hopeless, powerless, and that any contemplated resistance to La République du Cameroon occupation would be futile. This will be futile. They use brute force. They don't negotiate. They don't dialogue. They don't understand. They are known for using brute force, and history have the facts. It's not today. All that which has been catalogued since 2016 to now is a replication of what they've done in the past. It didn't start today, fellow Ambalanders. So routinely carried out, the operation followed a fairly standardized pattern. As early as 4 a.m. in the morning, heavily armed military forces would invade a pre-selected town or village, moving systematically from house to house, breaking in if the occupants hesitate to open at the first command to do so, moving from one street to the other, from one local to another, demanding each person to produce their carte d'identité, ticket import, receipt, the carte de partie, and all whatnot, and all of these patents, permis de condo, laissez-passer, carte de séjour, or other pieces of document the soldiers choose to ask. So if you were not in possession of any of these things, man, you are in for a treat. I mean a retreat. You go home with a broken finger, a broken head, a broken something, because the military has brutalized you, because they don't dialogue. They are not trained to protect, they are trained to kill. This is what Cameroon military has been all about. It didn't start today in Ambazonia. When you see them going into our communities, you heard from house to house, community to community, street to street, and this is what they do today. They go to house, community to community. If you don't provide, they burn down the community, they burn down the houses, the occupants of the houses, kill them, then bring them back into the houses and set the houses ablaze. This is what they did in Gagbo. This is what they've been doing in many communities in Ambazonia. The Azi documentary is there by the BBC. We saw what they did in Azi. They burned down the community schools, burned down villages in Akwakwa, Munyenge. Everywhere they go, they set the villages ablaze. People are forced out of their homes at gunpoint, headed like cattle into an open space, tortured and humiliated in front of their families. Forms of dehumanization include being forced to sit on wet grass on ground, on mud, on dust, or on dirty water pond on the roadside, as well as being forced to kneel on sand, gravel, stones, and other road surface facing and looking at the sun. We have seen these images surfacing on the social media, how they force our people to lie down on the sun, crawl in the mud. It didn't start today, ladies and gentlemen. The same helpless people are ordered to put their hands on their heads like captured prisoners of war and forced to sing insulting and obscene songs about their spouses and parents, or derogatory songs about God, and to dance or run around, sometimes naked, to amuse the soldiers. Anyone who failed to comply with any of these commands received the butt of the gun, the kicks in the ground, or a scar in the face. As if all this was not enough, it was not uncommon for the soldiers involved in this operation to rape women, steal property, unlawfully detain people in the commissariat de police or brigade de la gendarmerie for days and weeks on end without charges. Ambalanders, does this ring a bell? Does this ring a bell to you? Are these things new to you? Is it that we provoke them? Is it that it is this generation that provoked them? These are parents. What did our parents do? What did the people, the innocent civilians in the community sleeping quietly do that they break into their homes, rape their mothers, rape their sisters, steal their property, set their homes ablaze, force them to dance naked, sing against, sing defamatory songs against, blasphemy songs against God, force them to sing derogatory songs against their spouses and parents? Did they pick up guns? Were they carrying guns? Southern Cameroonians didn't even have a defense force of their own. They knew nothing but peace plans. Their peace plans did not work for them. Ambazonians, we have never been violent. They instilled violence in us. They instilled violence in us by provoking us to the limit where we could no longer take it. So when you say we incite violence and we incite crimes, please, we should go back into history and ask ourselves if these people that were arrested, tortured, humiliated, treated in the most degrading manner ever carried gun, ever even saw a bullet, ever even saw any harmful objects. All they knew were peaceful plans. They didn't even go out to the street to protest, but yet they were tortured, killed, raped, maimed. This is the Cameroon that you die for. This is the Cameroon that you stand to advocate for. I hope we are learning. Let's continue, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this is opening your eyes, your minds, and your ears, your thought processes. The confession of a colonialist. Let us look at what that means. I said we'll break this down heading by heading, just the way our legal minds presented it in the Banjul. Addressing his political party in July 1962, Mr. Amadou Ahidjo, the self-declared federal president of the Federation, confessed that La République du Cameroun had in effect annexed the Southern Cameroons using the plot of a pretended federation. He said it by himself. He said, the unification of the Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroun did not necessitate a fundamental change of the constitution of La République du Cameroun, but only a minor amendment to allow for a part of the territory to rejoin the motherland. It was La République du Cameroun which had to transform itself into a federation, taking into account the return to its of a part of its territory, a part possessing certain special characteristics. And when he talks of a part possessing certain special characteristics, of course, we know exactly what he's talking about. He's talking about nothing but our natural resources, our minerals that they are exploiting to enrich their territory, to develop their territory. Why we wallow in shame, why we wallow in poverty and in suppression. This could be no clearer admission of annexation or colonization of the Southern Cameroon by La République du Cameroon. For the claim that the territory of Southern Cameroon is a part of the territory of La République du Cameroon is an egregious falsehood legally, historically, culturally, and politically. Please, let's go back to part 1 of this message so that we have a clearer picture of all of this. Remember, they said they were never annexationists. They will work with us on equal footing. But listen to what Ahidjo said in 1962. 1962, just 1 year after. Ambazonians, wisen up, man. Domination of the people of Southern Cameroons. The de facto Cameroon Federation lasted a mere 10 years. During these years, the people of La République du Cameroon systematically increased their domination of the people of Southern Cameroons. This domination manifested itself in several ways. The federal government was essentially a La République du Cameroon monopoly. The Southern Cameroon had only a small and token presence in all the 3 branches of the government, the executive, legislative, judicial, and therefore could not take or influence any policy decision. 1:80,000. I hope we've not forgotten that ratio. The military and police have always been entirely French in training and language and have always been a La République du Cameroon institution. Mr. Ahidjo, president of La République du Cameroon, and the self-appointed federal president covered the federation into 6 administrative regions, each headed by an inspector fédéral d'administration, native of La République du Cameroon. Ambazonians, we have suffered. Along the constitutionally established 2 constituent federated states, each headed by a prime minister, the Southern Cameroons was decreed an administrative region. Taxonomically, this meant that it was consequently a federated state, self-governing and an administrative region under La République du Cameroon tutelage. For the inspector was always a citizen of La République du Cameroon appointed by Ahidjo and directly answerable to him, and his office was deemed to be ordinate to that of the Prime Minister of Southern Cameroon. Ahidjo thus created an administrative region that basically ignored the underlying principle of the federalism. He did this to keep up the fiction that the Southern Cameroons was indeed part of the territory of La République du Cameroon. Ahidjo grown into such power as Southern Cameroon had and basically deprived it of revenue-raising powers, thus making it dependent on federal subsidies, grudgingly and erratically allocated. The Southern Cameroon's Prime Minister deplored this system of ad hoc subsidies and wondered aloud how a state could develop by itself according to its priorities if it cannot know how much revenue it has at its disposal. Ahidjo arrogated to himself the power to appoint and dismiss the prime minister and ministers of the government of the Southern Cameroons, notwithstanding the fact that the state operated a parliamentary system of government. The Southern Cameroons was ordered to switch over from the right-hand hand driving from the left to the right-hand driving. The unit of money in the Southern Cameroon had all along been the pounds, right? In 1962, it was abolished. The franc CFA in use in La République du Cameroon was overvalued in relation to the pound, and then extended to the Southern Cameroons with disastrous consequences for the Southern Cameroons government and for individuals who had savings. The trick of La République du Cameroon. In 1966, Ahidjo. In 1966, Ahidjo, a consummate manipulator, deceitfully maneuvered the political parties in Southern Cameroon and decreed a one-party system, thereby ending multi-party politics in Southern Cameroons. The stranglehold of La République du Cameroon over the Southern Cameroons was now virtually complete. La République du Cameroon also set about destroying the economic base of the Southern Cameroons. The banana exported to Britain under Commonwealth preference tariffs were a major source of income for the Southern Cameroons government. So by bringing the Southern Cameroons economy within the custom arrangement of what is in effect still French Equatorial Africa, the preferential tariffs were ended. The French preferred to buy bananas from French-owned companies in La République du Cameroon. The Southern Cameroons could not therefore sell its bananas and suffered a heavy loss of revenue. The Southern Cameroon's main agro-industry, the Cameroon Development Corporation, the CDC, and the private banana farmers abandoned banana farming. Amberlanders, please, I hope we are listening. They all abandoned their source of revenue and income. Southern Cameroon's seaport Victoria and Tico were teeming with activities. But guess what? Victoria was a vibrant commercial city with striving firms such as John Hart Limited, the Cadbury and Frey, Unilever, UCTC, CCC, the Britain Company, Kumba District produce abundant foodstuff of various variety, timber, cocoa, and coffee. In order to induce a dependency syndrome in the Southern Cameroons, La République du Cameroon constructed from Douala its main and degrading port, a road linking it to Victoria, and a narrow gauge rail line linking the same city to Kumba, to exploit all our resources, of course, to exploit and extort all our resources. So, the Victoria and Tico seaports were then decreed closed. These were thriving and booming economies. They were all closed down by La République du Cameroon, by Cameroon, by Amadou Ahidjo. The commercial companies were then forced to relocate to Douala. People now had to travel 80 kilometers all the way to Douala for shopping. Cash drops and food produce harvested from Kumba were henceforth being taken to Douala. A vivid account of the economic strangulation and ruination of the Southern Cameroon is given in J. Benjamin Les Camerounais Occidentaux. So the de facto federation was thus not conceived to operate and did not operate in the manner fully consistent with the aspiration of the people of Southern Cameroon. La République du Cameroon frustrated the freely expressed wishes of the people of Southern Cameroons to independence. It set in motion the process of forcing the people of the Southern Cameroons into La République du Cameroon mode in a hopeless homogenizing quest designed to result in the complete extinguishment of the separate and distinct identity of the people of Southern Cameroons. For standing up to La République du Cameroon's expansionist agenda, Prime Minister A.N. Joa was labeled in autonomiste avant tout, a die-hard autonomist, and dismissed by Ahidjo. Joa would later die in circumstances which remain suspicious. When Foncha reminded Ahidjo that there was no valid union accord or treaty between the Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroon, and that it was high time such an accord is concluded between the two parties, he was shabbily treated and dismissed from his decorative office of vice president. Professor Dr. Fonlon called for an equal quota of the cabinet ministers in the federal government. He called for the establishment of a federal senate with equal representation for the Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroon. He called for meaningful representation for the Southern Cameroons in the Federal Assembly, so as to put the Southern Cameroons in a position to influence policies and lawmaking. He called for Southern Cameroons' autonomy to enable it to effectively govern itself. He called for an end to the treatment of the Southern Cameroons as a dependency of La République du Cameroon. Fonlon was summarily dismissed from his ministerial job. Nzo Eke Ngaki was also labeled an autonomist and was also sacked from his ministerial job. Some of those names are native names. I may not pronounce them well. From the federal period to this day, nationals of Southern Cameroons are appointed, if at all, as a matter of grace, and then to subordinate positions as assistants or deputies to nationals of La République du Cameroon. And this is what people claim a federation. And I wonder if the likes of Agbobala and all the noisemakers who are out there talking about a federation have ever gone through this document to know exactly what has happened in the past, to know that you cannot federate with a government like La République du Cameroon. They were either subordinates or deputies to nationals of La République du Cameroon. Moreover, key ministers or ministries and offices are, as a matter of policy, out of bound to nationals of the Southern Cameroons. And people are saying that we should go and federate with La République du Cameroon and be what? The slaves and servants for the rest of our lives. Our parents suffered as servants and slaves for them. We should continue to suffer as servants and slaves till when? For our children to come and continue in the same circle? God forbid. This includes the Republican presidency, Secretary General at the presidency, the commander of the armed forces, Director General of the oil industry, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of the Interior, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Information and Culture, the Ministry of Economic and Industrial Development, and ambassadorship to Nigeria, France, Britain, United States, and the United Nations. All of these positions were headed by citizens of La République du Cameroon. Our parents were nothing but slaves, bag carriers, choppers of wood. Okay, let us talk about the unchecked power conferred on Cameroon proconsuls. The unchecked powers conferred on Cameroonese proconsuls Instead of loosening the stranglehold of La République du Cameroun over the Southern Cameroons, Ahidjo moved to further strengthen the administration territorial by giving increased powers to the Inspecteur Février d'Administration, later renamed governors, and to the prefect. In the Napoleonic style perfect system he had imposed in the Southern Cameroons. They were given absolute and unchecked powers within the administrative areas, including the power to torture, to detain indefinitely, to confiscate property, to control the movement of persons and goods, to censor the press, and to disperse any assembly, prohibit any meeting, and disband any association. The governors, that's what I mean, and the prefect, that is the divisional officer, continue to exercise this arbitrary powers to this day, unchecked by the law or by morality. So, in 1966, Ahidjo resolved to balkanize the Southern Cameroons and to fuse the areas thus cut up into contiguous regions in La République du Cameroun. The objective was to procure the complete extinguishment of Southern Cameroon, both as a political and as a unilateral territorial unit. Somehow, a Southern Cameroonian journalist, Mr. Emmanuel Epierre, got wind of the plan and published the story in the Cameroon's Mirror. The Prime Minister and peoples of Southern Cameroons were furious. The government of the Southern Cameroons issued a press statement stating that such a move would be completely unacceptable. Ahidjo, in La République du Cameroun, an insurgency group variously referred to as les maquisards, les territoristes, or la rebellion, operating since the 1950s, had been fighting the French colonial authorities and later the Ahidjo government in that country. In December 1966, shortly before Christmas, some members of the terrorist group, native of the Bamileke tribe, crossed the border into the Southern Cameroons and killed 4 Bakossi villagers in Tombe for no apparent reason. The Bakossi vented their anger on residents, Bamileke tribesmen. Hear what it says. That these terrorist groups that were operating, attacking French colonial rule in La République du Cameroun, crossed over to Tombe and massacred villagers of Bakossi land. They killed 4 villagers of Bakossi land. And the people of Bakossi retaliated by killing residents, the anger on Bakossi tribesmen who were resident in their own areas as well. So this were amount thousands of refugees fleeing relentless repression in the native Republic du Cameroon and who had sought asylum in the safety of the Southern Cameroons and were given sanctuary in Bamenda, Kumba, Tiko, Tombe, and Victoria as migrants. So the Bakossi retaliation resulted in 2 or 3 casualties and the destruction of some property. A civilized government would have called for calm, given police protection to the 2 communities, established a commission of inquiry and arrested and prosecuted the culprit. The Yaoundé regime chose to act otherwise. In retaliation, Ahidjo ordered in his troops, and a barbaric act of collective revenge was exacted against the Bakossi people. West Africa magazine of May 1976 records that 236 Bakossi men, women, and children were massacred in Tombe town, destroyed. That 263 Bakossi men, women, and children were massacred in Tombe town, destroyed. Another 143 men, Bakossi people, were adopted and transported to Yaoundé under inhumane conditions. They were tried by the Yaoundé military tribunal in a language and under a law they did not understand or comprehend at all. Is this strange? Did what I just read now strange to our people in this present day La République du Cameroon? Is this not what has been happening to our citizens? They were tried in a military tribunal in a language and a law they have no idea about. The charge was subversion. Of the 143 persons, 17 were sentenced to death and executed by fire squad. Ladies and gentlemen, by fire squad. 75 were given life sentences in various gendarmeries run detention camps, in effect to slow death given the cruel conditions of detention in those camps. 2 were sentenced to years imprisonment each. 4 were given a 2-year jail term each. One person died during the trial and 36 persons were discharged. Ambazonians, this does not start now. So in all, about 330 Bakossi people perished at the hands of Yaoundé authorities. Every Bakossi family either lost a family member or was affected as a result of the massacre in Jalan. Ladies and gentlemen, so what happened in Tombe is what is happening across the national territory of Ambazonia. So I will plead with you not to be comfortable and think that we invoked or we instigated the current massacres or the suffering of our people in Ambazonia. No, our people have been suffering since 1961, and you've seen how the progression has gone from one stage to another, from day one to when we are today. Let's talk about the pretended 1972 federation referendum. The pretended 1972 referendum. Given all this event between 1966 and 1971, there was persistent rumor of the collapse of the de facto Cameroon Federation. The 1971 security report from the Southern Cameroons to Ahidjo informed him of the general opening express resentment in the Southern Cameroon that the state was being treated as a colonial of La République du Cameroon, and that the Southern Cameroon will be justified in proclaiming its separate independence. The security report also informed Ahidjo that leading Southern Cameroon's politicians had a 4-day meeting in Kumba, during which they decided to form an opposition Christian Democratic Party with the blessings of the Catholic Church. In the early 1972, Ahidjo poured in more troops in the Southern Cameroons to avert the danger of the generalized revolt. The troops were ordered to systematically terrorize the population as a form of psychological warfare. All movements of key Southern Cameroon's politicians were closely monitored round the clock. Ahidjo then inspired with Paul Biya, the incumbent or the constitutional heir, who is presently the life vampire in La République du Cameroon today, Charles Onana Owana, or Musa Yaya, Sakri Fada, and Francois Sengoko, all of them citizens of La République du Cameroon, to end the de facto federation and to formally annex the Southern Cameroon to La République du Cameroon. This was yet another chapter in the game of constant duplicity and scheming by La République du Cameroon. Ahidjo then conspired. Let me take that again. Ahidjo then conspired with Paul Biya, the incumbent president of La République, or the constitutional heir of La République du Cameroon, Charles Owana, Musa Yaya Sakifada, and Francois Singako, all of them citizens of La République du Cameroon, to end the de facto federation and to formally annex Southern Cameroons to La République du Cameroon. This was yet another chapter in the game of consistent duplicity and scheming by La République du Cameroon. Oh man, these people. Then, incongruously, he said he would consult the people by referendum 2 weeks later on May 20th. It was the people of Southern Cameroons alone who had voted at the plebiscite. It was they who were going to lose their self-governance. One would therefore have thought that Ahidjo would confine his referendum to the people of Southern Cameroons to indicate whether they wish to diametral change in their political status. One would therefore have thought that Ahidjo would confine his referendum to the people of Southern Cameroons to indicate whether they wish a detrimental change in their political status. But Ahidjo chose to make his referendum a general affair. The ploy was an insurance cover to make sure that even if the people of Southern Cameroons were to vote no, that vote was going to be overwhelmed by the crude majoritarian yes vote of the people of La République du Cameroon. It was going to be a yes from the people of La République du Cameroon, who had all along nursed the ambition to absorb the people of Southern Cameroons. In any event, throughout his despotic rule, Ahidjo's words were the law, and so even as he spoke on that day, no one had any illusion about the result of the so-called referendum. In view of the fact that the result of the so-called referendum was a foregone conclusion, and that the former annexation of the Southern Cameroons would in fact already have been accomplished by the time of the referendum, the said referendum could have been no more than a gimmick of the benefit of the international community. Ahidjo's speech, in effect, amounted to a decree sacking the government of the Southern Cameroon and the overthrow of the federal government. Ministers and MPs simply packed their personal belongings and scampered away in fright. Neither Parliament in the Southern Cameroon nor the Federal Assembly dared to resume sitting in order to debate Ahidjo's speech or to dispose of any pending business or to formally dissolve it. Ahidjo would later burst that he had carried out a revolution. Since the de facto federation was declared ended, it was doubtful what entirely Ahidjo was president of. His confederates secretly drafted a constitution and had it secretly typed by Ahidjo's tribesmen. Osame, the French law professor Maurice Duverger, was then fetched from Paris to review the document. The political leadership of the Southern Cameroon was not even informed of what was going on. There was not even the pretense of the public debate on the document. Before voting day on May 20th, the generality of the people had not even seen lest they studied the content of the document. Yet, the long, widely referendum question asks people whether they approve of this unilateral constitution instituting what he called La République Unie du Cameroun. In a choreographic exercise, including motion of support, usually generated by the Cameroonese presidency and Ministry of Internal Affairs, the ministry responsible for organizing election and fixing their result. Ahidjo claimed a 99.999% approve of his coup. Taken completely unaware, the Southern Cameroons was unable to come up with a response, dismissing the exercise as a charade, saying the choice was between we and yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what Southern Cameroonians have been going through from the time of our forefathers. It didn't start now. And like I said, we are going to continue this in segment by segment so that it will help us to understand the history of Southern Cameroons, what we have suffered and what we are still suffering till today. So let us know that this did not start today. I will come back to continue from today's episode. I will bring in the next episode. And so, as we conclude this exploration of the Southern Cameroons' plight, we must remember that the fight for recognition, justice, and self-determination is far from over. The legacy of exploitation and marginalization continues to resonate today. So, urging us to listen to the voices of Southern Cameroonians and stand in solidarity with their quest for autonomy. So let us not say, we provoked this. We didn't. This thing happened way before we were even here. The struggle of Ambazonia is not just a local issue. It is a testament to the enduring quest for dignity and rights that transcends borders. In understanding this history, we equip ourselves to advocate for a future that honors the aspiration of all peoples. So, fellow Ambalanders, I call on you all to listen to this video. Not just with your ears, let your heart speak to you. Sit down and have a reflection so that you will know that the likes of Dr. Cho Ayaba are fighting for nothing but for justice, defending the integrity of our people, defending their right to speak, their right to protest, their right to their identity, their right to their uniqueness, their right to be a people, their right to be independent, their right to control their own political institutions, their right to make political decisions and make policies that benefit them, their right to run their own economy and with their own economic resources, their right to own their own political institution, educational institution with their own educational curriculums. This is what they fight for. He fights for. La République moves around portraying itself as the victim. I hope from what we've listened so far, we've learned so far in history, you will know who is truly a victim and who is an oppressor amongst the two. And again, that you will know that Cameroon, La République du Cameroun and Southern Cameroons have never been one and indivisible. They've been two separate entities and divisible. God bless you as you watch, and please, as you watch, kindly subscribe and like and comment and set up your notification button so that when next we bring up the next part, you'll be duly informed on time. So God bless you as you listen. And again, do not forget to share. until it gets to their own presidency. God bless you all.